So what we're going to be doing during the call, for those of you who would like to ask questions, we are going to be using the chat feature. There are bubbles either on the top or the bottom of your screen. One of them is a chat bubble. You click on that. There's a drop-down menu. Just go ahead and when you do want to ask a question, click on all participants. And then we are going to be moderating those questions towards the end of the session and providing an overview for Chris so that he can get through them promptly and efficiently. I now have 2 o'clock, so Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you. Thank you so much for helping us, and thank you so much for your willingness to help all of our members.
Well, Sharon, you're welcome, and I'm glad to be here, everybody. My name is Chris Bird. I'm out of Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. A little bit about my background. First of all, 2 of us wrote this course. Dale Carlton, an attorney out of Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I were asked by CRS-RRC about 2.5 weeks ago to prepare a program that we could basically help realtors all over the country understand exactly what's available to them from the programs included in the CARES Act of 2020. And just so you know, the very latest information, President Trump signed the latest appropriations bill of $484 billion more money within the last 60 to 75 minutes. So Sharon and I have been playing with the date of this webinar for the last week because it was cut off when we were going to do it a week ago. And then I didn't want to wait till next week, everybody, because we thought that this new money was going to be available. And above all, I mean, all of you that have not done something so far with respect to this stimulus bill need to work on this today, tomorrow, Sunday, but you need to do things by Monday morning first thing because the rumor on the street is this new $484 billion is going to be gone real quickly, and the previous money allocated was gone in 13 days, everyone. And all the lenders have so many applications in queue right now that I honestly don't think it'll last till a week from today. If you don't have your applications, especially for the PPP program, with your bank in queue by Monday morning, I think you're going to be starved out of getting any stimulus money. Now, those of you that have already done something based on listening to Dale and I in the last 10 days, you probably have a leg up on this where your PPP loan is in process and the bank may have already contacted you to close on the loan, things like that. One more thing before I get started. Dale and I have been involved in this entire program from day one, and personally, my company has received 2 of the 3 products that we're going to talk about, and so this is not some textbook approach to how to do this. This is live, how to get money from the stimulus bill. So here we go. All right. So first of all, everyone, on the SBA.gov's website, and this was as of 4/16, but I want to update that till just in the last 30 minutes I was on their website again. Please look at the second bullet from the last, if you would. Lapse in appropriations notice. SBA is unable to accept new applications at this time for the Paycheck Protection Program, known as the PPP program, or the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, known as the EIDL program, EIDL, COVID-19 Related Assistance Program, including the EIDL advances based on available appropriations funding. This program shut down as of 9 o'clock on April 16th. Because all of the money was appropriated from the first $349 billion in the first stimulus bill. Well, again, everybody, $484 billion was appropriated within the last hour or so. What we're waiting for is on the SBA.gov website, we're waiting for them to announce that money is again appropriated so you can go and make the 2 applications that I'm going to talk about today. So that's how timely this information is. Now look at the last bullet, please. The EIDL applicants who have already submitted their applications, I'm going to explain this in detail, will continue to be processed on a first-come, first-served basis. So some of you who may have heard about this in the last week, who have already applied for your EIDL grants, all right, that money will be forthcoming. and you don't have to apply again, but you have no way of checking on the status of this because they're so backlogged, everybody, they're not even answering the phones to help you find out the application status. So I'm going to talk about all of this, what you have to do going forward. So here we go, right? So the original CARES Act of 2020 signed into law March 27th of 2020. And what are we, a little bit less than a month away from that? Was originally 880 pages, and $2.2 trillion in stimulus was allocated to this program. And again, everybody, just in the last hour, another $484 billion on top of that. So here we go. So right off the bat, everyone, signed by the Senate, the additional funding on 421, voted in the House 423 yesterday, signed by President Trump in the last, basically, hour. In the new bill, there's $484 billion allocated, of which $320 billion of that amount is for the PPP program, and $60 billion is for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program known as EIDL. So the action plans you have, and I'm sorry for talking with my hands, everybody, that's the way I teach, all right? The two first bullets here, the 320 and the 60, is going to be your action plan after you listen to this webinar, with priority on the PPP. That's why it's listed first. And then after you get that application file, then with the EIDL, everybody, because they're coming from two different sources, and I'm going to hit you with all this, all right? And then in the new appropriation, $75 billion allocated to hospitals, everybody, and another $25 billion for testing. And that is the new money allocated literally in the last hour and a half. Okay, now, first of all, let me just get something quickly off the books here. So I've talked about it. But I hope most of you have already seen your stimulus check, all right? And literally it was $1,200 per person, single, $2,400 for married couples, everybody, $500 for each child under the age of 17. And over 100 million taxpayers have already gotten those checks in the last 10 days. And what you ought to do is check your checking account, because if you filed your taxes electronically, then this money should have found its way to your checking account by now. However, if it hasn't, that doesn't mean it's not coming. Now, very quickly, I want to get past this because I have nothing to do with this. This is simply the IRS and the stimulus bill acting on your filed returns. There was no lower income threshold, meaning people that were on Social Security, everybody, are supposed to get a check as well. Excuse me. And there are upper income thresholds. And if I have to go and get a glass of water, I'll be right back. It's my first time this ever happened. Got it. Right? Sorry about that. But there is an upper income threshold. So if you look at my chart, you'll see for single taxpayers, under $75,000 of adjusted gross income, you got the stimulus check, no questions asked. Above $99,000, you are phased out. You're making too much income. Under $150,000 for married filing jointly, you get the stimulus check. Over $198,000, you don't get the check. So the right columns are the phase outs, $99,000, $198,000, and $148,500. But for every child you have that qualifies under the age of 17 on December 31st of last year, the phase out went up by $10,000 per qualifying child. For example, if you're married and you had 3 children under the age of 17, the 198 would become 228. So if your adjusted gross income last year was 226, you'd still qualify for stimulus, but you wouldn't get that much, everybody, because 226 is so close to the 228. Now, needless to say, so don't anybody bother asking the question, yes, there were a whole bunch of kids left out of this. So if your child turns 17 and 19, everyone, or is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 in college, there is a mix there of children who did not get the parents any more money, and if they're dependents of the parents, they couldn't file their own return to get the stimulus payment. So no uncertain terms, you got a kid in college who's 22 years of age, who's your dependent, you don't get a $500 on them and they don't get $1,200 on themselves unless they file their own return, had enough income to be independent of you, things like that. So anyway, there it was. Now, let me say this. There's no action you have to take, but there is a myth. If you look at the last bullet on this screen, there is a myth, everybody, that this stimulus payment is simply in advance of your money that you ordinarily would get when you file your 2020 return. And that is absolutely a myth, because here's what's going to happen. Let's say that you're married, no kids, and you qualified for the 2400 and you got the 2400. Well, there will be a reconciling item, everybody, on your 2020 return. Well, the computer would show that you qualified for 2400 and the IRS will say, you got the 2400, so you're scratch, all right? But what could have changed? What could have changed was that you had a baby. Ladies, you were expecting on December 31st of 2019, so you wouldn't got the $500 dollar amount in your stimulus payment. But when you file your 2020 return, your return will reflect that you got, let's say, 2,400, but you should have got 2,900 because of the child born in 2020. Well, you'll get that extra 500 when you file the return. So the not so funny, but kind of funny, everybody, if you know taxes. You've all read that people that died in 18 or 19, that their estates got a $1,200 check. Well, that did happen in a number of cases, and the word is on the street, and we won't know till the end of the year. The word is on the street that that money will not have to be repaid. So food for thought, there it is, and just so you know. Now, if you're interested and you haven't got your payment yet, you might go to the IRS website, because on April 15th of 2020, they instituted through notice 2020-72 a Get My Payment feature that you can basically input 5 items from your tax return, and it will show you, if you have not got your money yet, when it's scheduled to be released. Now, I played with this, everybody, on my own, and I knew that my income was above the phase-outs, and my wife and I don't have any kids. We're empty nesters. So it basically said, no information on your payment, which I expected because I didn't expect a payment anyway. Now, it's not perfect, everybody, but it's at least an indicator of when you should get your check. Now, a lot of accountants have complained, everyone, that the check is different than what it should be and all this good stuff. And they've complained to the IRS as of a week ago. And I would like to just give you this information. And remember, you get a copy of a number of things of my research and Dale's research, plus everyone, you get this PowerPoint. And the IRS has provided 2 URLs, everybody, 2 locations on the internet where you can go to check about your payment. But again, I guarantee nothing here, just trying to help in any way I can. Okay, let's get to the big information of this webinar. So we've got 3 things to talk about, everybody. And you see 01, 02, 03. And I'm going to start with 03, and then I'm going to end with 03 a little bit later as I end my presentation. But here's what I'm not going to be talking about. So I've got listeners, everybody, from Chicago, New Jersey, but primarily Florida, and I'm talking to you from Illinois. So yes, there is the possibility of realtors qualifying to be able to claim Florida unemployment, all right? Illinois unemployment, New Jersey unemployment, etc. But here's what we're finding. These agencies, everybody, are so decimated by handling the claims in 1 month for their handling in 1 month the claims that they would handle in a whole year. Right? Most of these states are not ready to process self-employed unemployment compensation claims at this point. In fact, in Illinois, we've been notified don't even apply until middle May because they're working on all the people who lost jobs who ordinarily qualify for state unemployment. So here's my advice, and you might want to talk to your accountant, your state representatives, whatever, but here's my advice. My advice is to apply for number 2 first in Brown, the PPP. And once you get that with the bank, then you apply for the EIDL, which I'm going to cover in a minute. And then everyone, if you do get the PPP loan, which I hope you do, that's going to cover you for 8 weeks. Then what I recommend you do is at the end of the 8 weeks, if you're financially hurting with lack of real estate activity, things like that, then I would consider going to the state unemployment for the self-employed features of the CARES Act. That's how I would do this. Now, let me say this too. Let's say that you've already applied for Florida unemployment, all right? And then everybody, you're approved for whatever reason. And then you go through the PPP application process and they approve money for you, as I will show how to compute it, for the next 8 weeks. Then what I think is going to happen is when you certify with Florida unemployment or Illinois or New Jersey unemployment, for those 8 weeks when you're getting the PPP money, all right, you're not going to qualify to receive Florida unemployment, but at least you've already set it up for the end of the 8 weeks. So in my opinion, you're not going to be able, at least in Illinois, you're not going to be able to receive Illinois or Florida unemployment for the same weeks they're getting the PPP. All right. I would like to be wrong as day on that, but I just don't think I am. So you're going to see me now focus everybody on O1 and O2. And your action items are first, you're going to go to O2, and then you're going to drop back to O1. Well, here we go. All right. So everyone, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, known as EIDL, all right, has 2 elements. One is a grant, and the other is a full-blown SBA loan. Now, when you go to apply for your economic injury disaster loan, listen to me carefully. You will do this with SBA.gov. You apply to SBA, and if you go to their website right now, everyone, you'll be told they're not accepting any applications because the appropriation hasn't come through. Well, let me tell you what. I expect that to open up, everybody, today, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right? But that website's going to change, and I want everybody that has not applied for the EIDL, the EIDL Disaster Grant, which I'm going to hit real quickly, I want you to watch that website every day and get your application in on SBA.gov immediately, right? Now, for those of you that have already applied and you have submitted it, and you've received a 10-digit code, a numbers code, you're in the process, everybody, and you're going to get that money. You don't know when you're going to get it, and you don't know how much it's going to be. I'm going to try to help you with that. And there's no way you can check on how much that is. So all you can do is, if you're already in the queue with SBA.gov and you have a 10-digit number as your application number, you will get the money. It might take up to 3 weeks, but you will get the money. You don't have to do anything else. It's for the people that haven't applied on SBA.gov that when the program opens up again in the next couple of days, get on there and apply. Now, here we go. Watch. Everyone, watch, count my fingers. There are 2 parts of this EIDL grant versus loan. First of all, when you go to SBA.gov, and you make the application, everybody, which takes about 15 to 20 minutes, not very difficult. You are applying for an SBA loan. Don't think otherwise. You are applying for a loan. But there are 2 elements to that loan provision. The first, everybody, if you look at the very bottom of my screen, the first element of that SBA loan is an emergency advance that immediately becomes a grant, okay? Now, when this program first opened up, everybody was led to believe that they were going to get a $10,000 deposit to their checking account, bingo, within 3 days. Well, everybody, it ended up being a lot different than that. So here's where the rubber meets the road. Over 4 million people applied for this when the program was set up to only accommodate 1 million people, all right? So everyone, when 4 million applied for $1 million, for 1 million applicants being covered by the $10,000. What immediately happened is SBA.gov cut that back, everyone, to a lot lower number. So here is what it really matters, what it really means. If you apply and you're thinking you're going to get the $10,000, think again, because if you are a sole proprietor with no employees, the grant will be $1,000. If you're a sole proprietor with 2 employees that work for you, then you're going to get $3,000, everybody, $3,000. And if you are a sole proprietor with 9 or 10 employees, then you're going to get the full $10,000, everybody, which is basically $1,000 times you plus however many employees you've got. If you're a corporation, only yourself, like me, everybody, I've already received $1,000, right? My wife is a C corporation, 1 employee herself. She received $1,000 last week, all right? And it shows up automatically in your checking or savings account, whatever you told SBA to do with it, because on the SBA.gov, you have to say the name of the bank, the routing number, and the checking account number. And that money will show up 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 2 weeks later, all right? But there's no way to check on it. Now, I have a lot of colleagues, everybody, who have 8 or 9 or 10 or 15 employees. They got the full $10,000 because when you multiply 1,000 for themselves and then 1,000 for each employee, that's who got the full 10 grant and no more. Okay, now everyone, that is the first element of this EIDL loan program. So listen up if you would. So when you go in and apply, you have to check the box. I am asking for my grant up to $10,000, all right? And that is an initial advance. Now, here's what happens. In the real world, okay, they are so backed up. When you've given them all this information, I fully expect, everybody, an email from SBA to my wife for her corporation, to me for my corporation, with the second part of this saying, okay, we've given you this advance, okay, of anywhere from 1 to 10,000, as I've already told you. Now, are you going to apply for the second part of the EIDL program, which is a full-blown loan, everyone, which is above what you've already asked for? And let me tell you what, look at my slide, if you would. Look at the slide deck. So who can do this? Businesses with 500 or fewer employees, which is all of us, include sole proprietors, independent contractors, everybody, co-ops, farm co-ops, S corporations, C corporations, LLCs, etc. Now, to go over and above the advance, the business is going to have to show a hardship. So I'll guarantee you in the emails you would get from SBA, they're going to say, okay, what is your hardship? And everybody, generally what is being recognized is, in the hardship is, hey, the government shut us down. We cannot work, all right? The buyers have dried up, all right? We can't find listings. I mean, it's really not going to be hard to show hardship. In my own case, everyone, every seminar that I had scheduled for the summer has canceled, all right? And some have rescheduled for a year away. Some of them we've done online. A few of them we've done online. But literally, everybody, it's not going to be really too tough to show a hardship. The loan amount under the full-blown EIDL loan can be up to $2 million, all right? And the loan will be based on your credit score and other things that the Small Business Administration, the SBA, will ask you about. And there's no personal guarantee on your part of loans up to $200,000. Now, let me put this in perspective. Everyone, what I really recommend is that you go to SBA.gov as step number 2 after the PPP, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and you might as well get your $1,000 up to $10,000 of money, right? And you may have to wait 3 or 4 weeks to get it, but once you got that 10-digit number, you're in the queue, and you're going to see that deposit show up. It's as simple as that. So you might as well go get this, all right? And it's there for the taking. Now, personally, I would you go see which becomes a grant, a forgivable grant, and then go to the PPP, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about. But to wrap up the EIDL issue, all right, now look at this if you would. So Congress, everybody, originally in the Act of 327 allocated $10 billion to this. Well, if you divide 10 billion by 10,000, that means you got 1 million applicants they can accept, and that's why the 10 million went down to a lot less number. But in the last hour and a half, President Trump signed the second appropriations, and of the $484 billion, another $60 billion was added to the EIDL provision. So in the last week, we've heard, well, they weren't going to extend the EIDL and all this good stuff. Well, let me tell you what, they just added $60 billion more to the funding mechanism, everyone. So I expect that SBA.gov is going to reflect this in the next couple of days on their website. Now look at the second bullet. Whatever you get, okay, whatever you get of the advance immediately becomes forgivable, all right, if you use it on the right things, everybody, like what? Paid sick leave to employees, payroll, rent, mortgage payments, debt obligations, everybody. For example, if you've got existing accounts payable, like an unpaid blah, blah, blah in your real estate business, you can use that 1,000 to 10,000 to pay that bill, and that makes it basically forgivable. And you apply online for this at www.sba.gov, all right? And that takes care of the EIDL, which is step number 2 after today's webinar. Well, what's step number 1, everybody? Now, here's the big dog. Here's the big kahuna. And this is the big money. And I'll guarantee you, Dale and I wrote together this program. I hope collectively we've put $20 or $30 million in realtors' pockets all over the country collectively. That's what we hope, all right? Everybody, the payroll protection plan is called the 7A loan. Now, first of all, I want to make a statement, and this is so, so important. If I may jump back to the EIDL for just a minute. Let's assume for just a second that one of you goes and applies for the bigger money under the EIDL, bigger than the advance of anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000. Everyone, if you go for a full-blown SBA.gov loan under the EIDL program over and above the advance, that loan, everybody, is not forgivable. It's not forgivable. It's not forgivable. You will owe SBA that money. Now, over a 30-year amortization at an interest rate of not exceeding 3.75, which is hardly bad money, right? But it's not forgivable. And that is why I say you go from the grant up to 10,000, which is forgivable, right, under EIDL, and then you jump to the Paycheck Protection Plan loan. And here's why. Because if you spend this money right, and I'm going to go through at the end of this webinar what is right. If you spend this money on the right things, you will be forgiven of this loan. All right? So here we go, everybody. Again, who qualifies? 500 or fewer employees. Who is included? Now, understand one thing. Payroll, payroll, payroll. So accountants have so much screwed this up, everybody. They've told their sole proprietor clients, you don't have payroll, you don't qualify. That is so wrong. Every one of you that has real estate sales income qualifies, whether you're S Corp, C Corp, sole proprietor, LLC, because everyone, if you're a sole proprietorship or you're an LLC, your profits qualify as payroll, and I will show you this in a couple of examples. Now, before I go on, let me make one comment very, very clearly, though. You have been given, all of you, or at least access to 2 different documents that Dale and I have prepared. And some of it comes from SBA, everybody, other comes from different sources. But I'm going to take the position, and I know a lot of you are not going to like this, and I would like to be wrong on this, I just don't think I am, that those of you that have LLCs to own rental property, whether it be residential or commercial, Dale and I are convinced that that is not eligible for either the EIDL program or the PPP program. So, you know, if you've got properties in an LLC, everybody, I mean, I'm telling you that technically, in our opinion, does not constitute a trade or business. I would hope to be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. I will tell you this. I've talked to my bank that I have really helped with a lot of these loans, everyone, and they have told me they have not had one application by an LLC holding rental property for them to consider the SBA, PPP, or EIDL program. So food for thought, all right? I'm telling you that the PPP program is for active businesses. So look at the second bullet again. Includes sole proprietors, independent contractors, S Corp, C corporations, LLCs, if you've got a business. Now, in this case, everyone, the loan is specifically determined by a formula, and it is 250% of your average monthly salary for the prior year in the majority of cases. Now, there are specific rules for those of realtors that are listening. For those people that just started up a business in 2020, there are specific rules how their average salary is counted for January, February, March, and April before they apply for the loan. But most of you, everybody, were around for most of 2019. So you're going to have to show the bank tax information or information worked up by your accountant to basically show your profit for 2019 in order to apply for the PPP loan. So here we go. It's based on 2.5 or 250% of your average salary if you're an S corporation, your monthly salary, or if you're a C corporation, or if you're a sole proprietor, your average monthly profit in 2019. And basically, everybody, you take that average monthly profit or salary times 2.5, and that is your PPP loan that the bank will look at. All right? Now, then you've got to use it. I'm going to go much more specifically into this fourth bullet down. How do you use it, everybody? You must use it for payroll. You must use it for rent. You must use it for mortgage interest, utilities. All of this I'm going to hit in a lot more detail. And look at the second bullet from the bottom. All or a portion is forgivable, right, if you use it for the right things, all right? And of the right things, you've got to spend 75% on your payroll. Now, let me tell you what I know is confusing a lot of you. Most of you on this call are sole proprietors. You don't have employees. You're a self-operating realtor, everybody, and you don't think you have payroll. Once again, your profit is considered payroll. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to be writing checks to yourself, right? And that's going to constitute payroll, everyone. And that is going to be forgiven as part of your loan. And I will take you there and show you how it's computed. All right. Now, here's one more thing before I get into calculations. You are not allowed to consider more than $100,000. You are not allowed to consider more than $100,000 of profit or $100,000 of salary if you're an S or a C corporation. Meaning, if I've got a self-employed realtor on this webinar making $800,000 profit, everyone, they're not going to get a PPP loan based on $800,000. They're going to get a PPP loan based on no more than $100,000. The same for S corporations. It's intended to cover 8 weeks of payroll. That's the whole deal, everybody, to keep your people employed, including yourself, right? There's the trick, including yourself. And the point is that you've got to prove how you spent that money over 8 weeks, starting with the day after you get the PPP loan. So you got to keep detailed records to show the bank what you spent the money on so that they will then forgive the PPP loan that you borrowed. And if you don't spend all the money on the right things, then some of the PPP loan will not be forgiven, and you will have 2 years to pay off that amount of your PPP loan, which is not forgiven, over a 2-year period at 1% interest, with the first payment deferred for at least 6 months, which is still not a bad thing. So the one thing I want to tell you, everybody, is if you don't watch it, not all of your PPP loan will be forgiven. The lion's share will be, all right? But maybe it won't all be, and then you've got 24 months to pay them back at 1% interest with the first payment starting in 6 months. Now, where do you get your PPP loans? You must go to a lender in your area. And if you've been watching this, everybody, like Dale and I have been, I will tell you in all honesty, you're going to have better luck with local and regional lenders versus the mega banks. And I'm not mentioning names, everybody, because I don't want to get any nasty letters 2 days from now. But I will tell you, I have read articles on the internet, so they must be true, of these national big lenders being sued, everybody, because instead of treating the loans on a first come, first served basis, which the law requires, they took to their big clients first, because the fees they could make in processing the biggest loans would be far more than they could make in processing a bunch of little loans. So my point to you is, first go to the lender who you have a relationship with to make the PPP application, and basically say, where am I in the queue? Am I one of 10,000? Am I one of 40,000? Or am I going to be able to get my loan processed in probably the 4 or 5 days this money is available? So start with your local bank, everybody, is where I would start. Ask the question, and the answer is simply going to be this. Some of you will apply, and you won't ever get a loan, everybody, because the money will be gone before your application is looked into. And that's already happened with the first round of $349 billion. Some of you may have very well been in the queue, everybody, but they never got it uploaded to SBA to be approved. The lender did not. And therefore, when the money ran out on April 16th at 9 a.m., you were in the queue, but you were not accepted because the money ran out. You should be calling your bank and say, where am I in the queue for the next appropriation, which just really came out 2 hours ago now, but we don't know when that money's going to hit the banks. Everybody, will it be available Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week? Get your PPP application, which is SBA.gov form 2483, revision date 4-20, which is in the 33-page handout that you were given as part of this webinar. You want to have that baby sitting on their desk on Monday morning, and you want to know where you stand in the queue. Now, the deadline is June 30th of 2020, which is a joke because this money, everybody, will never last past probably a week from today. It won't last long. Now, what I want to do is, here is where the rubber hits the road, all right? And what I want to do, everybody, I want to show you some specific examples of how this works. So for some reason, that took me to example 2, and somewhere example 1 got dropped off of here. Hold on just a minute. Let me get back to, no, I'm good. Okay, so Realtors, listen.
Chris, this is Sharon real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just want to remind people, if they do have questions, to please use the chat feature, and we will take your questions towards the end. I'm compiling them as they come in, and Chris will be answering all your questions towards the end of the session. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. And if we don't mute everybody and get it controlled, then, we'll just never get through my material. So I've got 10 examples, 9 or 10 examples to show you. And these are really, really good examples. So example 1, to the majority of my listeners that are sole proprietors, all by yourself as a realtor, no employees. Assume your 2019 net profit on line 31 of Schedule C for 19. Line 31 of Schedule C for 2019. Everybody, this does not mean you have to have filed your return, but just a couple days ago, a client of mine came in. She brought me her stuff to work up her line 31. And everybody, even though I didn't finish her return, I finished that part of her return for her to take to her bank, right? and assume with me that her profit was 80,000 bucks. Well, everybody, even though she has no payroll, her profit is considered payroll for purposes of the CARES Act. So you divide that 80,000 by 12 is 6667 times 2.5, everyone, and basically her PPP loan is 16,667 bucks. Her PPP loan is 16,667, which she has 8 weeks to spend that money on basically everybody the right things. So what I would tell her to do right off the bat is in the first 4 weeks of the 8 weeks, I'd be taking a check out for roughly 6,667, although there's a prescribed formula for that. And in the second 4 weeks, everybody, I'd be taking another check for 6,667, and that's going to use up $13,300 or $400 of the 16,667. And the balance, everyone, she would be paying office rent, office utilities. I'm going to give you a list of this stuff. Mortgage interest, everyone, lease payments, things like this. So right off the bat, just by taking a check to herself, all right, over 2 4-week periods of the 8 weeks of around 6,667 for each 4-week period, that much will be forgivable automatically. And then she only has to worry about the other 3,000 bucks. Now, let me change it. I'm going to get big, everybody. I'm trying to hit every range of income on this webinar. So now we have a sole proprietor in Florida, everybody, no employees, but basically making 180 grand in profit. Line 31, Schedule C, 2019. Not 18, everybody, 19, right? Well, as I told you earlier, you can only factor in the first 100,000, right? So 100,000 divided by 12 is 8333 times 2.5. The PPP loan is 20,833. Now, what would I do? I would have that person take 2 checks, everybody, 8333 payable to themselves to do what? Pay their personal bills, things like that, just like you ordinary draw from your business. And that's going to use up about $16,600 of that 20,833. And the balance, everybody, is going to be spent on rent, utilities, things like that. And let me tell you what, just so you know, everybody, in another couple of weeks, the follow-up webinar to this, if we do one, is how to prove you're spending the money on the right things. For example, around the internet, I am reading many articles, and my bank has told me the same thing, that people are basically establishing a separate checking account called their PPP checking account, and they're only writing out of the PPP checking account what is the right stuff to spend the money on, so it'll be more easily proven to the bank at the end of the day what you spent the money on to make that 20,833 forgivable. And before I move on, let me just tell you what's really going on here. Just hear me out on this, if you would. I mean, the full 9 yards. The government is paying your bills for 2 months, 8 weeks. The government is paying your bills, right? Now, when the government pays your bills, it gives you this 20,833. It's non-taxable. It's non-taxable. The 20,833 is non-taxable to you. And then when they forgive the loan, the law has been written, everybody. When they forgive the loan, it is non-taxable at that point either. So the government is paying your bills. Now, the only question remains unanswered at this point, and we'll know later in the year, is if you pay utilities and rent and things like this and an automobile lease for the 2 months, can you deduct those payments, all right? And my gut reaction is probably not, but there's been plenty of argument on the internet that they think you can. Okay, so here we go. Everybody, next step. So here's a high earner realtor, Schedule C, with 2 employees, okay? Now, the 2 employees are not the realtor, but they're 2 office staff, whatever, okay? Not 1099 people, but W-2 people. Okay, now, 180 grand and limited to 100, but now you take into account the 2 W-2s of the employees for another 90 grand, all right? But W-2s. So 100 plus 90 is 190. Divided by 12 is 15,833. your PPP loan, everyone, is $39,583. And what will you do in 8 weeks? Number one, you're supposed to continue the pay of the 2 employees. That's going to use up part of that $40,000. You're going to continue to cut yourself checks, everybody, for the 8 weeks of $83.33 twice for the 2 4-week period of time. And then spend the rest of the money on the other right things like utilities, rent, lease payments, car payments, mortgage interest on loans, interest on car loans, etc., etc. All right, example 4. Now, here we go. And here's your instructor, everybody. Here's your instructor. So out of my S corporation, I take $80,000 salary, W-2 salary. Now, the more salary you take, the bigger your loan's going to be. The less salary you take, the lower your loan's going to be. So here's your instructor, everybody. Now, go with me. My profit on top of that 80 was considerably more than that. But the PPP loan is based on the salary you take out of your S or C corporation. 80,000 divided by 12 is 6,667 times 2.5 is 16,668. And what will I do, everybody, for the next 8 weeks? I will continue that salary of 6,667, which again will use up 13,500 of the 16,668. Then I'll make lease payments, everybody, mortgage interest, car leases, etc., to try and get as much of that 16,668 forgivable by the bank at the end of the day. Okay, now watch. Here we go. I make it worse. Here we go. Salary to an S corporation owner of 180 grand. Remember, limited to 100. But this person has 2 employees, everybody, collectively, who make 140, and neither one of them makes over 100, so we get to count the 140, the full 140. So we've got 3 W-2s here, 1 for 180 and 2 amounting to 140. But the total we can count is 240, 100 for the owner and 140 for the 2 employees. 240 divided by 12, everybody, is 20 times 2.5. PPP loan, $50,000, right? And then continue those salary levels for 8 weeks, and most of that $50,000 will be forgivable. Then hopefully they have other commitments like lease payments, utilities, and I'll go over that again in a while to make all of that 50 grand forgivable, hopefully. All right, now watch this. I make it worse. Everybody, example 6, $350,000 salary to the S corporation owner. They're making a chunk of money, all right? And remember, it's limited to $100,000. And wages paid to 5 employees, not 1099s, all right? And I want to make a statement very quickly. For all of you broker owners on this webinar, let me make this very clear. You cannot count the 1099 commissions that you pay to your agents as payroll. That was knocked out a good 2-3 weeks ago, everybody, in the law, right? Why? Because your agents are allowed to go get their own PPP loans based on their commission income and their net profit. So you can't count that. So if you are an owner, broker owner, everybody, on the webinar, and this is you, you get to count, obviously, 100,000 of the W-2 paid to yourself, and then you get to count the W-2s paid to your 5 employees in this case, all right? But these are employees not receiving 1099s. Now look at the board if you would. So you paid 5 employees $600,000. However, a couple of them were very highly paid, everybody, so they were limited. You're limited because you can only treat the first $100,000 that you pay any one employee. So of those 5 employees, you paid $200,000 over and above a couple of employees' $100,000 limit. So you lost that $200,000. So you get $100,000 of your wage W-2 income plus $400,000 of theirs for a total of $500 grand. Divided by 12 is 41,666 times 2.5 is a PPP loan of 104,168. Everybody, just go with me on this. The government's going to pay payroll for the next 8 weeks and other expenses as well. So it's going to pay your salary. It's going to pay their salary, right? Not a bad thing. And then when you prove what you spent the money on, everybody, most if not all of that 104, 168 would be basically forgiven and you don't have to pay it back. Now, watch this if you would. And I've got a couple of examples, everybody, to show you how it was and then how it got changed. So example 7 is an LLC, everyone, taxed as a partnership, not an S Corp, not a C Corporation, 2 owners, 5 employees. Now, this is the way it was and it got changed. But I want to just show you kind of an ironical into it. So the profit of the LLC, which under the old rules was not considered for the PPP loan of the entity, the $800,000 going to the 2 owners does not count. But they did have 5 employees that they paid a total of $600,000 to, but 200 of that was more than the 100 limit to several of those people. So we could only count 400. And then everybody divided by 12 is 33,333 times 2.5 is 83,332. Now, that is a loan to the LLC. And then everyone, the way they thought we were going to do this is then we were going to go to the 1040s of the 2 owners, and here's one of them. So they're picking up their half of the 800, everybody. So look at the top number on this example 7, and half of that becomes one of the owners, $400,000. Now they can only take into account $100,000, and $100,000 divided by 12 is 8333 times 2.5 is 2832. So everyone, go with me on this. This is one of the 2 owners. So we would have 2 of these owners who would basically get $41,600 between them. And then everybody plus the 83,332 to the LLC, we would file 3 PPPs to come up with 125 of PPP loans. And then what happened, everybody, is this, okay? On April the 14th, the SBA basically issued a document and said, wait a minute, we don't want 3 applications coming in for the PPP. We only want 1 coming in from the LLC. We're going to give you the same money, but we just don't want 3 applications considered. We only want 1. So by what happened here is then the profit to the 2 partners stayed at the LLC level. Of the $800,000, we could only factor in $200,000, 100 plus 100. And then the 400 from the employees, everybody, total 600, divided by 12 is 50,000. This time, the LLC gets a check for 125, which, if you don't mind me saying this, is the total of 2832 times 2 plus the 8332 under the previous example. It all comes back to the same money, everyone. And literally the government says, for efficiency, we want 1 loan, not 3 loan applications. So anyway, I hope those examples, everybody, show you what to do here, right? And I want to get rid of a couple of myths, and then I want to take some questions on this. Now, let me tell you what I'm not going to cover because of time, and I want to center on this program, these programs right off the bat. First of all, the rest of our program talks about other elements of the CARES Act, which we give you a really good PowerPoint presentation, all that. It talks about, everybody, the unemployment, which I've already hit. It talks about mortgage forbearance and tenants, things like that. But why I'm here talking to you today is to really get you to act on this money that was just appropriated and do it fast, all right? Because this money is going to be gone and you're going to miss out. And the second thing is, first go to your lenders where you have a relationship for the PPP. But if they're so backed up, everybody, they told you you'll never get in the queue, then go seek out a local regional lender that will help you, all right? Now, a couple of comments before I take questions. Number 1, there's a myth out there that you cannot have an EIDL grant and a PPP loan. That is absolutely hogwash. Your instructor, everybody, has received both. And thousands of people have emailed me that they've gotten both. So I received a $1,000 EIDL grant deposited into my checking account about a week ago. And then a couple of days later, I got the $16,667 PPP. Now, I've gotten both, okay? So understand this. If you get any part of that EIDL grant, right, what that's going to do, everybody, is it's going to make that much money of your PPP not forgivable. So let me give you a very specific case. I got $1,000 of the grant, and I got $16,667 of the PPP for a total of $17,667. No matter what I do, at the end of the day, when I go back to the bank to say, I want this amount forgiven, because I got the EIDL of a grant, that will make 1,000 of my PPP non-forgivable, and I will still owe it to the SBA, right, over a 2-year period of time at 1% interest. And let me tell you what I intend to do, class. $1,000. When I go back in by June 30th to reconcile these numbers with the bank, I intend to write them a check for that $1,000. I don't want to worry about that money for 2 years, even at 1%, everybody. And that's what I'm going to do. All right. So just want you to know that if you get both, that whatever you get from the EIDL advance, otherwise called a grant, will make that same amount of the PPP non-forgivable. Simple as that. So before I take questions, I want to do action plan again. Everyone, you are to go to the internet and download the PPP application form, which is SBA.gov form 2483 with a date of 4/20. That is a 2-page form that you will fill out, and you've got to make affirmations and all that good stuff, all right? And then you're going to apply the formulas that I've given you based on your 2019 S corporation salary, C corporation salary, or your Schedule C, everybody, for 2019. And if you have no idea what your profit is for 2019, you may want to get to see your accountant over this weekend to have them help you come up with an approximate number for your profit. And if you walk in there with a filled out Schedule C, everyone, for your profit, the bank will not audit you on this. They will accept that number, right? And then they're going to divide it by 12 times 2.5, as I've shown you in my examples. And you're welcome to, you got a copy of these with my PowerPoints. So that's step one. Apply with the bank using form 2483, first thing Monday morning, if not even today. Second, after you do that, assuming SBA.gov is accepting the EIDL advance/grant application, take 15 minutes of your time and fill that baby out, submit it, everyone, and you will then print a document with a 10-digit number on it, and that is your proof of submission. There's no way to check that. Just wait 3 weeks, everybody, and then start checking your bank account. And all of a sudden, you're going to see a deposit. SBAD, right, is the coding, and it's going to be anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 based on you and the number of employees that you've got. So with that being said, everybody, I mean, we're right at an hour. I've given you your 2 action plans. So Sharon, I'd like to open this up to questions. And everyone, literally, I'm willing to spend as much time as we need to, although we've kind of allocated about 30 minutes to this. I'm here as long as you need me. Sharon.
Yes. Hey, Chris. I do have a bunch of questions, so I'm going to start from the top. I've tried to condense them to get rid of some of the duplicates. First and foremost, folks are asking about a copy of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded. It is going to be up on the Florida Realtor website. It will be posted no later than 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It will be under floridarealtors.org/coronavirus. And in addition to the recording being hosted, we will have the PowerPoints from Chris's presentation and the handouts that I previously sent as well, so that you guys can refer to all of that. So now I'm going to go with the questions. From Twiz in Osceola, do 501c organizations qualify for the EIDL?
Good question, and you have no idea how many churches and not-for-profit groups have applied. And I'm going to make a statement that any organization that qualifies for one of the two things I've taught qualifies for both of the things I've taught. So my point is, why not go get the EIDL? And if they tell you no, they tell you no, but I don't think they will, and I would apply.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. On to the next question. This is from Aaron. I was denied today for the PPP loan because they are looking for payroll tax documents, which for me, as being the only employee, I don't file. Why am I being denied? It was from Chase Bank, and they told her that they didn't have the right payroll documents submitted with her 1099 and tax return.
Well, here's what it sounds like to me, Sharon. Number one, the rest of that question is this, all right? I'm assuming, and this person is welcome to link back to you on this, but I'm assuming they're a sole proprietorship and they have no employees, okay? That's what I'm assuming. And then I'm assuming that Chase Bank doesn't know what the heck they're doing, because the way I've taught this is correct. If Chase Bank would check the SBA documents on this, especially a document that was issued on April the 14th of 2020, specifically stating that a sole proprietor is to use line 31 of Schedule C, which is the net profit divided by 12 times 2.5. I simply believe, Sharon, that Chase does not understand what happens with a sole proprietor on this, and that's all I can say. But I would like to say one thing. Everyone, it is not your gross commission income on your 1099. That is your GCI. You have to put that on a tax return form, Schedule C, if you're a sole proprietor. Take from that your expenses and come up with a profit that you then divide by 12 times 2.5. Sharon, that's the best I can do on that. And I just hope Chase is not making a huge mistake there by not understanding the rules.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Again, just to repeat this information, this is being recorded. It will be on the Florida Realtor website under floridarealtors.org/coronavirus, and it will be up by tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. PowerPoint, in addition to the handouts that were previously sent, will also be posted for you. Next question.
Sharon, may I jump in real quickly just for a second? I cannot emphasize the point more that even though you're a sole proprietor, all right, or even a partnership LLC that's running a real estate business, you don't have to have employees to qualify for the payroll protection program. I know that sounds like an obvious inconsistency, but your profit is considered payroll, and that's example 1 and example 2 in my PowerPoint presentation. Sharon.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Next question, there's 3 parts from John. I was under the impression that PPP and EIDL were mutually exclusive.
Number 1, that is incorrect. Well, number 1, they are mutually exclusive, but you can get them both, all right? So you get the EIDL grant, the advance, by going to SBA.gov, and you get the PPP by going to a lender that is qualified to make PPP loans. So they are exclusive, but you can do both. Sharon.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Next question from John. For realtors who have dropping commissions, revenue, payroll for the 10 weeks after the loan comes in, how can they justify that they should be reimbursed?
Well, number 1, it's not 10 weeks, Sharon. It's 8 weeks, all right?
Okay.
And the point, it's 8 weeks after they get the money, not 10. But that's more of a philosophical question than it is a practical question. That philosophical question doesn't enter in whatsoever. You simply are going to cut a check to yourself for that 8 weeks to basically equal up to what your profit was the previous year, and that becomes forgivable by doing that. Sharon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Chris. Next question for you again from John. For forgiveness to work, do we have to maintain 75% of all payroll or only the amount listed as average monthly? In other words, if I made 150 last year, I can get PPP based on 100. Do I have to pay out salary for the 150 or only the 100?
That's a really good question, all right? And what you've got to do is you've got to pay out the salary based on the 1/12 of the 100. You know, that's a really, Sharon, I'm going to beg off of this. That's a really interesting question because if they paid if their profit was 150, you know, Sharon, I've got to back off that. I'm going to go with the point that it's going to be the 8333, but that's the first time I've had that question. Usually what I've tried to tell people is they can't raise their salary because the SBA documents have a specific ratio that you are to use to keep it to what you were making the previous year. But I will not go out on a limb and give an opinion where I do not know the answer. That's a great question, John, and you've stumped the instructor. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Sharon.
Next question from Joan.
Hey, at least respect the point that I'm not blowing smoke.
No, I appreciate that. Next question from Joan. I did not file 2019 yet. Can I use my 2018 tax return? My accountant said to use Schedule C. Is that right?
Well, number one, that's a two-part question, and Schedule C is the form that you use, but they are not going to accept 2018. I guarantee it. What they're going to want you to do is they're going to want you to go down your 2018 return and change the numbers to reflect what is going to be for 2019. And I shared, if need be, I can read exactly what and I'd like to take a second to do this. Okay. I'm going to the SBA document dated 4/14, which is the 19-page document that you were given, Sharon, to give to everyone.
That'll be up on the website.
But I want to read specifically what it says about exactly that question. Okay, I'm on page 6 of the 414 document from SBA, and it's B1. It says step 1. Find your 2019 IRS Form 1040 Schedule C line 31 net profit amount. That's what I said. And then it reads, if you have not yet filed the 2019 return, fill it out and compute the value, right? So in no uncertain terms, I know our banks here in our town will not accept the 18 return. And everybody, let's be realistic. I mean, so many things change in 1 year, it's not even funny. So you don't have to have a completed return, but I would ask for some help from your accountant to help you come up with a reasonable number for line 31 for 19. Sharon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chris. Next question. True or false, if you did not get a previous refund from submitting your taxes, you are unable to get a payment because they don't have your banking information?
Well, number one, partially true. So the people that filed electronically, Sharon, who basically had a balance due or a refund either coming out of their checking account or into their checking account, that's where the IRS has refunded those stimulus payments most quickly. But if the IRS does not have your bank account information, then you will be getting a check, which is obviously slower than a direct credit to your account. So it is untrue that you won't be getting the stimulus. It is a matter of when you will get the stimulus check, and a check is always going to be later than a direct credit. Sharon.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Next question. On the PPP, if you only have one account, can you just put the money in a separate account and transfer it to your operating personal account?
Now, this is really a good question, and let me tell you what. In my presentation, I merely stated that a number of people have created a separate checking account for the PPP, and I just acknowledge that I've read that. In my own world, everybody, I am an accountant. I'm a dork, so I know how to keep track of what I'm spending. So on the checks that I write, I will write in the remarks section PPP expenditure. So I am personally not creating a separate checking account for the PPP. All I'm saying is that I'm acknowledging that there are a lot of people recommending that, and that is clearly an option. And my own bank, Sharon, has told me that a lot of people have set up a separate checking account entitled PPP. Sharon.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Next question from Will. What if I filed 1120s, Schedule 1, don't see a C?
Well, number one, if you file an 1120, everybody, that means you're one of two things. Form 1120S is for S corporations, and Form 1120 is for a C corporation. And now your profit does not matter. It's your salary that matters. So if you filed an S corporation or a C corporation return, 1120 or 1120S, they're going to be looking and they're going to be asking for payroll tax records, 941s. They're going to be looking for a W-2 for you for 2019 or W-3 that summarizes the W-2s. So here is the person who's going to have a problem, everybody. And that is a person, Sharon, who filed as an S corporation or a C corporation, but took no salary to themselves. I'm telling you, the PPP loan is now zero unless they have other employees besides themselves who they issued W-2s to. So the profit only counts for the LLC filing as a partnership or the sole proprietor, but profit does not count if you're a C or an S corporation. Sharon.
Okay, next question. Actually, it's a statement from J.J. Jones from Fort Myers. She just wanted to say thank you, that this has been the most informative webinar yet about the CARES Act, and wanted to thank you for your time and helping us learn more about this subject. But we do have more questions as well.
Well, let me say this first, Sharon. Let me say one thing. To respect that person, Kay and I own a lot of investment property. We own a beautiful home in Colonial Country Club in Fort Myers, and we own a couple of rental properties in Fort Myers as well, even though we live in Illinois. So there's my tie into Florida. Sharon.
Yay, that's wonderful.
Yay!
One person is having an issue with the volume. We are not. It could be your computer and your internet connection. If you are having issues with your volume, you may just want to check your speakers, and this is being recorded, and hopefully the recording will be able to give you the information that you're getting muted on. Next question from CJ. If a realtor has a second job that is still ongoing, are they eligible to apply for PPP, EIDL, and unemployment?
That's a loaded question. And number one, so here's the deal. The person's got a W-2 job, Sharon, and whether it's affiliated with real estate or not, people with W-2 jobs, okay, where that is their only income, do not qualify for EIDL or PPP and presumably unemployment. However, this person is asking, they also have real estate income on Schedule C as a sole proprietor, plus they have a job. And I'm telling you, they qualify for both the EIDL and the PPP based on their Schedule C sole proprietorship. But I would tell you that I cannot believe they're going to be able to draw Florida unemployment when they've got a W-2 job already. All right? So there you go. Sharon.
Thank you very much. From Kathy, on the PPP form, do you put your office name and address under business legal name and your office address?
That depends on what kind of entity you are. For example, when I filed mine, Kathy, as an S corporation, I put Chris Bird Seminars Inc. twice, one in the trade name, one in the legal name. But if most of my listeners share, and I'm assuming are sole proprietors, it'd be simply your own name, Christopher B. Bird, because that's how your license is held, etc. Sharon.
Okay. I'm printing more questions as we're speaking. Next
Fine.
question. Because I had major surgery during season in 2019, I did not make nearly as much as before. Am I a lost cause?
Well, here's the thing. That's an interesting question because, there's always exceptions. For example, Sharon, the biggest thing that people should use is 2019. However, there's an exception for that if the last 12 months before you apply, okay, which would obviously be January, February, March, and April, that would be 4 months, then 8 months of 2019. If that could be a larger number than just 2019 by itself over 12 months, then I'd recommend they try the last 12-month rule instead of all of 2019. But it is clear that, Sharon, for example, if we have a realtor that just started out in 19, all right, and they had a loss the first year and very low income in the first couple of months of this year, do they get the EIDL? For sure, because the EIDL is not based on income, but there are probably not a lot of PPP to get, all right? So I wouldn't tell you the person's out of luck, but I would tell you no matter what happens, it's probably not going to be much of a PPP loan. Sharon.
Okay, next question. Can a sole proprietor apply to PPP if they are not set up under an LLC?
And the answer is absolutely yes. I'm going to say it again. Absolutely yes. And the reason I'm doing that, Sharon, is so many accountants are telling their sole proprietor clients they do not qualify because they have no payroll. And that is so wrong, it's not even funny. So a sole proprietor who is either an LLC or not an LLC both qualify for the EIDL and the PPP. Sharon.
Okay, next question. How would it be best to get notifications when we can file the application with the SBA? Right now, their website is not accepting any applications.
And that's kind of what I said. And let me tell you what, I'd be checking every 8 hours because I'm going to be, because this is my business. So every 8 hours, Sharon, until it changes. And boy, I'd be right on it. Okay.
All right, thank you. Next question. If Chase Bank is the only bank I can apply with because it's the only bank I have in a business account with and they have denied me, can I go somewhere else to apply?
And the answer is absolutely yes. There's no requirement that you have to go to the bank where you normally bank. It's recommended because that's where you have a relationship. But I would go to a local regional bank. I would go in there. You may have to do this telephonically because the lobbies may be closed. But I would call and I'd ask for a lender that handles PPP. I'd tell them your situation. And if I get a PPP application in there on Monday, is there a chance I will be in the queue? Because here's the process. The bank has to upload the application onto the SBA portal, right? And once they've got all the information filled in and is correct, then the SBA will give them a loan number, and that's when you know that you're in the queue, that you're going to get your money before it runs out. But the big question there is, will the lender tell them they have a good chance or not? And there lies the problem, Sharon.
Okay. Next question. I'm a realtor with a PAS corporation, and I see something that is a K-1. Can I use that instead of Schedule C?
And I can tell you clearly the answer is no. We've already tried that. So when they say PAS, what they're saying is they are an S corporation because an S corporation gives a K-1 to their owners, and the salary, the W-2 coming from the S corporation is what qualifies for the PPP, not what is on the K-1. And if there's been no salary claimed, everyone, there's no PPP. Simple as that. I mean, this is where the chickens are coming home to roost, where people who have used S corporations and they're paying no salary or very low salaries, well, guess what? The PPP is not going to help them much, if at all. Sharon.
Okay, next question. Can you please verify the form that should be downloaded from SBA.gov? Someone was looking for Form 2483 and could not find it. That's from Ray.
Okay, it is Form 2483, and everyone, I'm going to verify this. Sometimes I get the 83 transposed. Give me a second. And Sharon, that happens to be page 3 of the 33-page handout that you have given to everybody.
Okay.
But I want to respect the question by, here is my outline. It happens to be page 3, and it is, here it is, it is Form 2483, revision date April 20, and the title is Paycheck Protection Program Borrower Application Form.
Okay.
Sharon.
And we will be posting up all of these documents again on the website as well. Next question, what if you estimate the 2019 Schedule C and what happens if it ends up not being correct?
The worst that can happen, okay, this is a really good question, all right? The worst that can happen, everyone, is that not all of your PPP loan will be forgivable. I mean, you haven't broken any laws. You made a PPP application based on your best estimate. And then when your accountant prepares it another month from now, you find it was either high or low, all right? Well, if it was too low, everyone, then the money that you got will probably be all forgivable. But if it was too high, you may not be able to spend all that money on the correct things. And I do want to show everybody that. And what are the correct things, Sharon, if I can?
Sure.
If I may, okay? So
yes,
everybody, look at this if you would just for a second. I'm still gonna stay, Sharon, as long as we need to on the question, as long as you got time. So look at this if you would. The next and big question, how to make the majority, if not all, of the PP loan forgivable. And here we go. Basically, by June 30th of 2020, we must provide information to the lender who lent us the PPP, how we spent the money. Only the amounts spent on the right cost qualify for PPP loan forgiveness. And what are they, everybody? The right costs are, first bullet, owner compensation replacement, which for a sole proprietor is based on a ratio, not a ration, but a ratio of 8/52 of 2019 Schedule C profit. Everybody notice the 8/52 happens to be 8 weeks out of the previous 52 weeks. What else? Your employees' payroll, including health insurance premiums, required retirement plan contributions, and state unemployment contributions paid by you. What else? Payments of interest expense, but not the principal payments on mortgage obligations incurred before 2/15 of 20 on real or personal property. This means real estate mortgages, car loans, equipment purchases, all used for business, not used for personal. This interest expense on these payments must otherwise be deductible on Schedule C or your business return to be forgivable. And one more before I take more questions, Karen. What else? Rent payments on lease agreements enforced before February 15th of 20 to the extent they are tax deductible. This would include real property leases and personal property leases such as vehicles and equipment leases. So broker owners, listen up, and I've already made this announcement to all our brokers in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. On your monthly office bill to your realtors, if you're calling your rent desk fees, change it to rent, everybody, because if it's really office rent or desk rent or cubicle rent, whatever, in order for the lender to accept it, I personally recommend you call it what it really is rent, so it can be forgivable. And then what else? Finally, all utility payments, everybody, business utility payments to the extent they are tax deductible under service agreements dated before February 15th of 2020. Utilities include all the following: gas, electric, water, fuel for your business vehicles, your telephone, everybody, and your internet. So these 2 pages, everyone, I just added in the last 3 hours before I got on this webinar, right? But this is what you've got to prove to the bank by June 30th, that you spent the money on these 5 things, right? to basically make the PPP forgiven and you don't have to pay it back. Sharon, back to you.
A comment from Miss Rebecca. She wanted to share that she just put in her bank account information on the irs.gov website. She clicked on Get My Payment and checked if she was eligible. She's saying if you are, it will prompt you to enter in your tax information from the last filing and your bank account to receive your stimulus money. So she just went online to irs.gov to their website. Next question.
And what Sharon's talking about, class, is the Get My Payment on the IRS website, and that's what the young woman did to check on the status of her stimulus payment. That's not her EIDL, and that's not her PPP. That's the stimulus payment. Sharon.
From Hector, just wanting to make sure and verify, I have a business checking account. This would be where the PPP funds will be deposited, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Next question from Elizabeth. For our S Corp with only one W-2 employee and we have not filed 2019 yet, what documents will we need to submit for PPP?
That is an excellent question, Sharon, and here's what you got to do. All right. Number one, your S corporation return may not be due yet, but that's not what counts. What counts is your W-2s, everybody, which were due to the government by January 31st of 2020 for 2019. So the specific document, when I made my PPP application with my bank, I gave them my 4 941s for the 4 quarters of 2019. I gave them my 941 for the first quarter of 2020. I gave them copies of my W-2s for myself. I gave them copies of my lease agreements where I leased my property, and that was a part of a 15-page document. But basically, your W-2s and your 941s. Sharon.
Okay, next question from Dennis. If you have retirement and disability income from the military/VA and work as a full-time realtor, can I qualify for the PPP?
And the EIDL both, yes. The fact that you have other income from other sources is not a discriminating factor. That is correct.
Next question from Anna. I have real estate income as a realtor and also started managing an Airbnb property and have a net income for that. I'm not sure yet how I need to file taxes for this, but should I be adding both the realtor commission net income and my property management net income as my total self-employed income for the PPP?
Answer, in my opinion, yes, you should. I have many clients that had 2 Schedule Cs that we added together to form the total profit divided by 12 times 2.5. Yes.
Okay, and this is a question from Susan, and I think you already answered this, but I will ask it again. To apply for a PPP, must you have a business account?
This is a great question, and the answer is no. I mean, obviously, everybody, it's sloppy not to have a separate checking account for your business and a separate credit card and all that good stuff. But that does not render you unable to file for the EIDL or the PPP. All right, so still do it, but then I would start working on setting up a checking account for my business. Sharon.
From Lisa. If we can't use the total amount of the PPP loan for payroll, then how do we figure out how much to pay ourselves every 4 weeks with the PPP loan in order to prove we spent the money correctly?
Well, number one, I have to make an assumption, okay? And that assumption, Sharon, is that this person is a sole proprietor, and I'm going to make this very specific, okay? So first of all, let's say that their profit in 2019 was $52,000. So everybody, do me a favor. I need somebody, Sharon, if somebody in your office, divide 52,000 times 12, divided by 12 times 2.5. Would somebody give me that number, please? 52,000
divided by 12
times 2.5.
I get 10833. 10833.
Okay. What you're telling me is their PPP loan will be $10,833. That's what I think you just told me. Okay. Now, everybody assume that's correct. And that is 52,000 of line 31 on the 2019 return divided by 12 times 2.5. And let's just call it 10,833 and hope we're correct. Now, everybody, here's what the rules say. For a sole proprietor, they will automatically consider 850 seconds of their 2019 to be payroll. So I made this specific, okay? Now, everybody, 850 seconds. So you divide 52,000 by 52, and that's $1,000 a week, times 8, everybody, is $8,000. So everyone, you're going to cut yourself a check for $4,000 and $4,000 in that 8 weeks to come up to that 850 seconds or $8,000, and that is automatically, Sharon, considered forgivable. It's forgiven because you paid yourself your salary, right? Which leaves you $2,833 to basically pay lease payments, mortgage interest, rent payments, utilities, etc. And you are not allowed to add any more to your payroll, supposedly, right, than the 850 seconds. So if you have no other expenses, okay, you don't have rent, lease, nothing like that, then what's going to happen at the end of the day of the 10,833, 8,000 will be automatically forgiven, and the other 2,833 will not be forgiven. You got 24 months to pay it off at 1% interest, with the first payment coming in 6 months, right? Which is hardly a bad thing. Sharon.
No. Yes, thank you. No, that's not a bad thing. Next question from Ronald. How do I verify the IRS is processing our stimulus payments to both myself and my wife?
Get my payment on the IRS website, right? And then keep your fingers crossed. The IRS is admitting a lot of errors, Sharon, in that program, and it's just something I cannot answer as to their issues. Go to Get My Payment and see if that helps.
Okay.
Sharon.
Let me just check one other site here, but it looks like we have gotten all of the questions out of the way. I want to thank you, Chris, so much for helping us with this. This was amazing. And I will get with you to see if perhaps you can come back in a few weeks so that we can talk about what they need to do to make sure that they're calculating things correctly and taking advantage of all of this so they don't have to pay anything back if they really don't need to.
Well, Sharon, thank you for the kind words, and Dale and I would love to be back with you in several weeks once we have a little bit more information on that part of it, what records to keep and all that good stuff. But everybody, have a great remaining Friday, and I've given you your action items. PPP loan by Monday first thing, and then followed by the EIDL as soon as SBA.gov opens up on that program. So everybody, God bless, have a great weekend, and I hope you get all the money you're entitled to. Sharon, thanks.
Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.